Okay, sorry. Okay.
But so maybe people aren't doing as much killing of the queens, but the commercial guys definitely do
That's
it.
horrible.
And unfortunately, what they're doing is ending the genetic line. So
Yeah.
the queen is the only carrier of her particular genetic um, lineage. There's no her drones are from unfertilized eggs, so it's 100% her DNA that goes out. And so when you're killing a queen, um, you're basically ending that genetic lineage, and any interaction that she's had, anything that she's learned from the environment, that's going to be passed on to her children. Because we know now that genetics is not a static thing. Your genes don't remain the same your entire life. They're triggered. They're and they're responsive to the environment. And so the queen, she's through the information in the pollen and nectar that's gathered by the young bees, transmuted into royal jelly and fed to the queen. She's receiving the information of her environment.
Right.
All the stuff with the bees is so subtle. We're like scientists going in there with, we're like sledgehammers in the china shop. It's on such a high vibrational level, and such a down to the flowers, the information, the biological information that's in flowers, nectar, that tells them. That's why for people to eat local raw honey, it's like you become vibrationally. Your cells receive the information about your environment.
Huh.
So this killing of the queens is becoming a problem as we're losing more and more queens, and the artificial insemination, which I understood to be the raping of the queens, is contributing to that, because the queens that the farmers or the beekeepers are purchasing are coming from big queen production facilities. And I didn't know it at the time, but Big Island is home to the largest one in the world, plus some other ones. And
Well, it takes them out of their environment too, so it changes everything.
yeah, it takes everything. But they're very little relationship to the environment anyway. They come. What they do is they choose. They raise certain breeder queens through artificial insemination. So they'll put the queen to sleep, and they inject her with semen from drones that they've selected, and then she's then set into, like, becomes a breeder queen, and that queen then hundreds and hundreds of, probably thousands in her life, of larvae are harvested from her, and then they're raised in cells in plastic cups that the bees, other hives then draw out as queen cells, then are transferred to another hive where the queen hatches and goes out and hopefully mates, and then comes back and starts laying, and then is taken out and caged and shipped to Israel, for example, or Canada. And so in order to stimulate the production, so basically when you're getting hundreds of thousands of queens from an artificially inseminated queen, hundreds of thousands coming into the population because they're being purchased. So 25%, for example, of all the queens going to support mainland agricultural, like pollination, come from this island every year, from just this one queen breeder. 25%. And if you're getting losses of 50 to 80% every year, you can see how you're getting basically like a hatchery kind of animal, bee, pseudo queens injected into the bee population. So one of the things, so that has to do with the
So initially the information...
We're selecting for, humans are selecting, rather than going through natural selection process, having learned what they learned from the land and knowing when it's going to rain, knowing when there's going to be a drought. How do they know? We don't know. They do, you know. So, you know, we were kind of we've lost our connection to nature, but we're trying to. The bees are losing. We're creating a situation where the bees are losing theirs, really, you know, and so. There's a genetic bottleneck happening, and that has to do with this selecting for gentleness, productivity, and not even knowing to look for things like hygienic behavior when we're plucking drones, you know, for our own terms. And so the bees have lost a lot of the genetic diversity and some of the traits, really knowing how to be a bee. They've lost some of that. So early on, when I started receiving information, I was told that I should move to Hawaii and create a honeybee sanctuary.
Who told you that?
That was a information from the bees.
So no person told you that? No human being?
No.
And you did that?
And so I did. First I went on a sabbatical, and then I quit I left teaching, and I sold my house and cashed in my retirement and made my way to Hawaii. I came here and I kind of been shown how the energy of Hawaii, it's a point where the energy comes up out and spreads out over the planet, and that's why. So that this is like a seed. This change in it's a place where the seed of a different way of looking at bees is implanted into that thought form. That's, you know what I mean?
Exactly, I do. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So basically, I was to recreate like an ancient Melissa temple and a bee sanctuary, and particularly it had to do with the wild bees, preserving the wild bees. Now I didn't even know about the queen breeding at that time, but I was actually brought to this particular district on the island and shown the particular place, which turned out to be 8.088 acres, which is significant because of the 8 is the number for the bee shamans, yeah. Anyway, so I began to gather wild hives, and then I was told by the bees again, and given the opportunity. I was given the opportunity. I felt the nudge, and then I asked them, "Is it really true? I thought you said this was what was wrong with you. You want me to go work for these guys?" And I was told it's a 2-year intensive education, and that it would be a 2-year kind of intensive learning process, whether I was there or not.
The bees told you this?
This was happening to the bee. This was what was happening to the bees, and I needed to know what went on.
Who told you 2 years?
The bees.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what year did you come to Hawaii?
I believe I came in 2000, the end of 2000. And I came back for good in 2001. I went 6 months. I spent on my sister's farm in New York doing some work for her.
So now you're in Hawaii.
So now I'm in Hawaii. I'm shown where the bee sanctuary is to be, which is in this very remote area of the island, very dry. There's no agriculture being practiced anywhere within miles of it. And even though I'm on the island that is full of queen breeding yards, none of them are in that particular area, which is interesting. So I was particularly told about that it was the wild bees that were important to and
you
I went to go, yeah.